Hi, I'm Siobhan, and I believe that certain sins are unforgivable. Certain actions are a reflection of a person's character, and forgiveness is not necessary in order to move on and heal from the hurt that you've experienced. It's not always the right answer. Yeah. Uh, Kind of a controversial take, especially from someone like myself that grew up in an evangelical Christian community, that was a hardcore Christian, super Christian girl until my mid to late 20s. And then I left the church and, continued obviously my spiritual journey. But I realized after a while that, like, forgiveness is kind of a scam. And shout out to Got to Be Ocean here on YouTube. I'm gonna tag her at the in the description box. She was the one who actually said it first. That I heard first say forgiveness is a scam. Forgiveness allows abusers, people who are horrible, horrible human beings to continue doing what they're doing with impunity, without real accountability, without real atonement. And there are certain things that people do that, listen, you can't make it right. You can't make it right. What you did was terrible. There's no possible way you could make it right, right? Like, I have certain family members that I will never forgive for the way they treated me when I was a child. And I was defenseless, and they were an adult, and they had all the power, and they took full advantage of that. I will never forgive them. What I can do, though, is accept what happened to me, right? This is what happened. This is what this person did. It was terrible. I can't change it. I have to move forward. The issue at the BAFTAs this past weekend, um, the thing going on with all those little children in those files, right? Um, Things we've heard about religious institutions, pastors out here harming people, the Catholic Church and what's been, rumored about them for ages, right? Like, even that uncle that comes to every family reunion, that comes to every family event, y'all know he's problematic. Y'all know he's a problem, but no one will actually stand up to him. No one will call him on his BS because you've got all these family members, mostly women, let's be honest, mostly our aunties and our grandma and them saying, oh, he's just a product of his time. Things were different when he was younger. He's got PTSD, and he's got this and he's got that and he's dealing with what. Right. Right. He's 65 years old. He has somehow learned how to use a computer because he's on Facebook, right? All the time, posting his his thoughts on Facebook. And he has a cell phone. He has an iPhone. He got a smartphone, right? But somehow he was able to learn how to use those things. He's able to keep up in those ways. But when it comes to, not being abusive, speaking to women and children with a certain level of respect, treating like full human beings. I don't know, seeing black and brown people as full human beings. All of a sudden that's whoa, that's too much. That's too much, right? He's not quite there yet, and we have to give him grace. Stop giving these people grace. That's why we are where we are. We've got too many people who are so ready and willing to turn a blind eye, people who don't want to be quote unquote confrontational, people who don't want to call a thing a thing. And then those of us who say, well, everybody has sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Yeah. And some sins are worse than others. Some sins are unforgivable. Some sins are not, little white lies. You can't measure, and I'm sure this has been covered by some philosopher somewhere, but you can't measure a little white lie on the same level with pedophilia or physical abuse or harm of, like, come on. Like, let's use our brains here. Um, I really believe that there are certain character flaws right? Certain things that are not, they're not bugs in the system, they are a feature. And when you realize that some behaviors are a feature and not just a bug in the system, then you have to decide, okay, like, is this someone that I want to continue to have in my life? Or is this someone that I need to go ahead and cut ties with? Right. And I feel like there's not enough people willing to cut ties with their horrible, horrible family members and friends because the benefits of being associated with that person outweigh your moral authority and your willingness to say this is not right and I will not stand for it in my presence. And I feel like if more people were willing to say that, if more people in high places as well were willing to say that, we would see a complete difference. You know, the first person that really brought to light the fact that forgiveness is basically a scam was the Ilosa Osinyemi Kalatunde. She has a channel on YouTube called Got to Be Oshun. And I've been following her for several years now. A few years ago, she did a video basically talking about the biblical history of forgiveness, right? The Abrahamic history of forgiveness, what it actually is, the ways that it has been warped and misconstrued in today's society to a point where there is an expectation for people who are irreparably harmed. We are often told that the only path to health and wellness and peace for the person harmed is to forgive the abuser. And I'm here to tell you that's not the only way. Listen, if you, for religious reasons or for your own conscience, because listen, you have to be able to look yourself in the mirror and sleep at night with a peaceful conscience, right? So do really search yourself, search your feelings, right? And search your heart. Make sure that the way you handle the situation works for you. But I'm telling you right now, as someone who was raised in a religious household, who was raised a conservative Christian household, and was taught that forgiveness was the highest law, was the highest, um, um, I don't even know, like the most beautiful thing you could do, the most restorative thing you could do is forgive. I'll tell you right now, it's not. I do believe that certain things are unforgivable. And until someone shows genuine, long-standing change and is not constantly repeating the offense, then you have no obligation to forgive. You have no obligation to forgive and accept that person back into your life. Now, some people will say, "Oh, you can forgive and you don't have to accept that person back in." I mean, sure, but I will say this about forgiveness. Forgiveness is always expected of, it's always more often, let's put it like that, expected of the person with lesser social status. Have you noticed that? More often than not, think about it. Pastor's wife is expected to forgive her husband who has been found in infidelity, right? She's expected to forgive him. And if she doesn't, then she is just a horrible person. Everybody looks down on her because she's not willing to forgive as Christ is forgiven, right? And that's the thing that they do. That's how they catch you up by your collar. Oh, Christ won't forgive you. This entity, this person won't forgive you if you don't forgive your husband. Hmm. Um, another thing too, the other thing that I'll say as well about forgiveness is that within forgiveness, modern forgiveness, there's often no accountability. If there's no accountability, then abusers are allowed to continue doing what they're doing. Here's the other thing about it too that I find really interesting. Um, Forgiveness only works, really, if the person you're forgiving has conscience. Because if the person you're forgiving doesn't have a conscience, if they're sleeping fine at night after abusing you and your cousins and whoever else, then what is the purpose of forgiveness again? Because I will tell you right now, you don't need to forgive in order to have peace in your heart and to sleep well at night when someone has harmed you. Sometimes the best thing sometimes the best thing you can do is get your lick back. I'm not saying all the time, but sometimes the circumstances are right for you to go ahead and get your lick back, right? And when the Elisha talked about that and she really made it plain, it opened my eyes about so much that I had been stewing over. And even though I had gone through the process of prayer and forgiveness and really trying to restore the relationship, and then just to come back and see that that person hadn't shifted anything. Nothing had shifted, nothing had changed. There had been no atonement for me. There had been no restoration for me, which are elements of like the classical definition of forgiveness, by the way. Then you realize the only person that's really suffering is me. This person is continuing on doing what they're doing, not being held accountable for anything. I'm the only one suffering because I'm still being hurt. All right, I had to take my headphones out. But yeah, I'm the only one that's really struggling here. And the other person, they're fine. They're living their life, they're doing what they want. I'm the one that is having to hold the the weight of what has happened to me. Another thing that I think about too is narcissists and how they'll use Darvo. They'll turn the situation around in order to make you the offender and them the victim based on how you brought forth like the issue. I'm telling you, when your abuser, the person that has harmed you, does not actually believe that they are capable of hurting people or that their behavior is hurtful, what benefit does forgiveness actually have in that situation? Besides, giving you some false sense of moral superiority because you were the superior one and just pretending, because that's really what it is, pretending like you've left that harm over there. You left it in the past and you've moved on. Really? Listen, I'm not saying that there aren't some people out here who can do that and be fine. But for many of us, the deepest hurts that we've experienced are not forgivable. And I would wager that if there were more instances and more situations where accountability and atonement were possible, then for true forgiveness could also be possible. True restoration could also be possible if justice were also possible in these situations, whether it's interpersonal or on, an international stage like the BAFTAs, or on an international, a situation that's in the international news like those files. Do you know what I mean? Then again, like how do you atone for all the children that have been harmed based on what you've done? What does atonement look like for those men? What does atonement look like for somebody like Deepak Chopra, who's mentioned in the files hundreds, if not thousands of times? Donald Trump and his ilk. What does atonement look like for an ICE agent who has hurt numerous people in quote unquote just doing his job? I'm telling you, forgiveness is a scam. And if you are a woman looking to regain a sense of agency in your life and a sense of um not control. What's the word I'm looking for? Because control is also an illusion. But yeah, I guess agency is the right word. Um, take back, reclaim your forgiveness. Really sit and take a moment and decide for yourself, outside of what a Bible is telling you, some man, some masculine God whoever, take really sit with yourself and say, this person hurt me. This is what happened. Do I believe that this is actually forgivable? Is what they've done a feature of their system, or is it just a bug? Right? Is what they did, uh does that reveal a certain element of character, or was it just a mistake? I think these are questions that we can ask ourselves so that we are not putting ourselves in harm's way without realizing it. Wow, holy technical difficulties, Batman. You know what? That's the end of my rant, okay? If you guys don't know me, my name is Siobhan. I'm a 40-something Black American woman encouraging women like me to live with more agency. I talk about solo travel through move abroad and owning every decision you make along the way. All right, y'all? That's all I got. I will see you tomorrow.